All right, welcome to Scalable and Saleable, where we find out what great entrepreneurs have done to scale their businesses to millions. Stay right here for the next few minutes to leverage validated methodologies for growth and create a way more scalable and sellable business for yourself. Let's get started. Would you mind telling the viewers just a little bit about you and your business?
Yeah, thanks for putting this together. Excited to do it. And my business, I have a few businesses, as most people do these days, I think. But my main business is a media buying company, an audience intelligence and media buying firm called AdVictory. I guess some folks might ask what that is, but as audiences get more fractured, as they are harder to reach, as they consume media across different channels than they used to, and overlap between TV and online and print and digital and all that stuff. We work with folks, mostly political campaigns, actually, to plan their media programs and plan their media programs around where their audiences consume media, and help them reach those people for their messages across TV, digital, radio, print, and all that type of stuff. So we work with clients to really understand who their audiences are, how media can best reach them, and help them execute those kind of programs.
Right. And I mean, people witnessed it a few years ago with the election, and more than ever, probably in history, how impactful what you do could be in an election. And with marketing, anything, nothing sadder than a great message to the wrong people.
Yeah.
What do you attribute your growth to?
Well, politics and the business of campaigns is an interesting vertical. I had one of my mentors make an analogy one time that political campaigns are like startups. They start every 2 years. They make all their money on one day, election day, and then they're out of business, whether you win or lose. And at every election cycle, you have to go and find new clients, and some of them stay with you. And we've developed a little bit of a corporate business base too, public affairs stuff that sits in the middle of political campaigns in the corporate world. But most of our business is still political campaigns. So every election cycle, every 2 years, we're out prospecting business. And honestly, I can think of a number of things. We've developed better systems internally over the years to execute our business and help it be a sustainable business for our team to service. Because as you can imagine, we kind of maintain this always on startup mentality as a company, because those are the kind of clients that we service. So they're very unorganized. They're very blowing in the wind with the news cycle and their goals. We kind of operate like that as a business to some degree, because those are our end clients. But we've developed systems internally to standardize our service as best we can, to help retain employees, to help them grow and be trained, that allows us to execute that stuff cycle to cycle. So keeping team members together has been a big part of it. And then ultimately just customer service. Political campaigns and any kind of startup, really, the biggest thing they need is just reliable, clear, concise customer service, where people are communicative to them, people understand what their goals are, people can execute it for them without a whole bunch of fuss and without a whole bunch of confusion. And we just try to play in that space as best we can, so we can execute things for our clients, so they don't have to think about anything. They know they have a reliable service from us. They know they have a reliable team, and they can go on to worry about the other 900 things they got to worry about.
Right. Wow. I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way based off of working on all these different campaigns and all the different companies that you've done this for. If you were to go into a brand new, totally different business, what would be some of the first things that you'd look into to start doing to grow that business?
Yeah, it's a great question, because obviously it depends on the business a little bit, right? So many things are different in different kinds of businesses, but there's also so many great things that are the same too, truths that live across all that stuff. I think customer service is, I just talked about, or I just mentioned, is one of the earliest things I would always look at, and really from the perspective of like, who are the current customers? If I'm just coming into a business new, what can I learn from them? What are their pain points? What are the successes? What are the goods and the bads and the uglies of the current interaction with the business? looking for ways to retain them, looking for ways to grow our relationship with them. I think there's so much fruit that can happen from growing a customer relationship, depending on the business, of course, but growing a current customer relationship rather than, what's ultimately harder sometimes and more expensive is to go out and find new customers. So what can you learn from those current customers? How can you grow the relationship? And how can that help grow the business? So many folks get focused on, bringing in new customers as their main goal. They don't nurture and take care of the ones they already got. And those can be the most impactful ones, for any business. And then I think the second thing is just look for strategic alignments and partnerships. There's so much out there in the entrepreneur community and the business community where other businesses need to find ways to partner and expose themselves through other people's entities. So how can you kind of understand those partnerships, your own network, and make those connections to grow, something that's mutually beneficial, not only for you as a business, but their businesses too, especially coming in new to a business like your question kind of posed. How can my network change some of those partnerships and strategic alignments that might be helpful that didn't already exist in that business?
Yeah, good advice. What do you feel most small business owners do wrong?
Oh, everything. We all make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect, right? Everything we do is kind of learning as we go. And it's being okay with that, is one thing, not beating yourself up about that. Mistakes are okay. You don't need to be afraid of failures. Some people, they freeze. They think everything needs to be perfect in order to structure something. They need to, draft a comprehensive business plan that covers everything that's going to happen with a new business. And kind of the old adage that I'm sure, many folks around have talked about and agree with, the first thing you do with the business plan after you do it is crumple it up and throw it out because, everything goes out the window once you hit market. But I think overcomplicating things too. I think that, trying to find the simplest, easiest next steps in anything you do, especially when things get confusing, how can you simplify things? How can you be concise? And how can you not overcomplicate? And those are the ways I think you find incremental growth.
Is there any particular book that jumps out at you that's been an influence on you?
It's funny. I'm not, as much into kind of reading, business related books or entrepreneur related books. I mean, I like them and I read a lot about that stuff, more short form, in news articles and stuff like that. My books that I like are stuff, Mark Twain, Following the Equator, short stories by Mark Twain and his kind of experiences traveling around the world as maybe something that relates to you and his kind
and you
of.
Get this new marketing idea somehow from the.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. The social commentary, satirism, and those kind of books are great. Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail by Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is my favorite author. And his kind of reading Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail is one thing that inspired me to get into politics. So I would say that was very impactful in my life.
Wow, that's not probably the most common path to politics.
But it's an exciting one. It's an exciting perspective.
It's the most common path to Las Vegas, maybe. But
there you go.
But if you could go back in time to when you first started out and say one thing to younger you, what would you say?
Oh, think about that a lot. I think being an engaged listener is something that I would try to do better. As you develop, kind of networking and relationships, you don't always want to be the one talking. You don't always want to be the one, forcing your viewpoint or forcing your stories or your point of view into conversations. I think the more you can listen, you can learn more, and you can kind of develop a camaraderie and a connection with folks by listening to them more than talking. So I think that would be one thing. Helping people before they ask. I think nobody really talks about how important networking and relationship building is. Certainly not when I was in college or when I was coming up in high school, in business school or other stuff that we were doing. You learned a lot about, businesses and marketing and financials and all that kind of stuff. But, so much, as with your business, and the way you've built a business around this is about relationships and networking. So helping people before they ask is one of the big things that I think helps with that.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, it provides value for other folks.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely help people. People are always, it's gotten to a point where people are almost kind of like, what are you helping me for? You're like, I'm actually just helping you. I remember meeting a good friend of mine who just moved to America from England. This is a long time ago. and I handed him a business card, say, hey, if I can ever help you, like, like figuring things out here, whatever. And he thought for sure, like, he's like, what is he trying to sell me? What is he trying to sell me? And I was like, I had such a specific business that like it was just really trying to help. But uh, what question should I be asking you that I haven't?
Oh, I think any business owner, any person, whether you're a manager, how can you bring other people along? I think when you talk about scaling a business, when you talk about scaling a department, even if you're not a business owner, how can you find the next you? How can you find, not even the next you, but how can you find somebody who's going to run in a different direction than maybe even you thought about with your company, or do an aspect of your business or service differently than you would think about it? And how can you foster, that type of, that type of freedom for people to act like that, and people to, thrive in building their own things. And one of the things, with my business, and this doesn't work for every business, but I try to, not micromanage as much as possible, and let my team members, kind of come up with their own ways of doing things, their own ways of working together, and offering our service and working with clients and developing their own relationship. So I think, as much as possible, it's an important thing to think about, with any kind of business and scaling it.
Yeah, awesome. Any parting words of advice or wisdom for the entrepreneurs in the trenches scaling?
I think you got to take risks. Like we said, nothing's ever going to be perfect. It's never going to be the exact time. And you can't let that, you can't overplan and always let that slow you down. You got to jump sometimes. You got to stay humble, no matter how much success or no matter how much failure you have. You always gotta, not take yourself too seriously to some degree, and stay humble and want to help people, and be concise. As you figure out how to answer people's problems, solve people's problems, bring a new aspect of your business to market, grow a team member. You got to have clear, concise ways to do that, and kind of eliminate the noise, eliminate the confusion, and those are great ways to move forward.
Yeah, man. Well said.